right, and on to our last hockey-related topic of the episode. I mean, we are Rangers fans after all, and we literally haven't, well, I mean, I haven't taken the initiative to record a podcast since the start of the season because I've just been a lazy piece of shit. So, obviously, we are,
Don't degrade yourself like that, Shades. Come on.
eh, I en- only on the podcast. I do it for entertainment purposes. So, we're 21 games in, and the Rangers are 10-7-4. And I would say if there would be one word to describe this team, it is inconsistent. And I'm getting a lot of the same vibes from last year. Not exactly liking that. I'm gonna let you take the floor for a couple.
Yeah, inconsistent would have been my word too, but I'm gonna say underwhelming, actually, to be honest with you. I mean, coming off of a Eastern Conference final appearance, a series in which they led 2-0, and could have easily led 3-0, and could have been a Stanley Cup finalist. It probably wouldn't have beaten the Colorado Avalanche. But my point is high expectations coming into the next season. And they just have not been able to find any stretch of consistency. I mean, Ryan Strome and Andrew Kopp, two players, left the organization in unrestricted free agency. You replaced them with Vincent Trocheck, a move that you and I were very happy about at the time. Of course, Trocheck, a guy who, is a little bit of a pest, like a Brad Marchand type of player, adds a little bit more size, down the middle, of course, can win faceoffs, helps in a lot of different areas. But I don't think that the Rangers really thought through the what they would be missing without Strom, without Kopp, without Vetrano, because all three of those players added such an element to this roster that complemented them so well that helped them reach the Eastern Conference final. And while Strom missed his fair share of open nets, and while Kopp is probably overpaid, and while Vetrano probably scored a lot because he was on a first line alongside Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad, those things can be true. But what can also be true is that their absence is what is directly attributing to the Rangers having an underwhelming and subsequently inconsistent start to the season. So that's just where I'm at with them. Obviously, Trocheck has not been able to develop any chemistry with Artemi Panarin. There needs to be another winger on that side. I don't think it's lost on either of us that there needs to be another top four defenseman acquired by this team. And I'm not talking somebody that's going to make a marginal difference. I'm talking about a Jacob Chikrin. That's what they need. They need somebody who's going to be a difference maker and who can bottle up the mistakes by their young players, like your Zach Jones, like your Braden Schneider, like your Keandre Millers, who have taken a severe step back from last year. Just talking about Miller in that regard, maybe Jones a little bit as well. I thought Schneider's been fantastic. Igor has taken a little bit of a step back. You're getting absolutely nothing out of your backup goaltending spot. I mean, Yaroslav Halak is 0-5-1. He gave up a couple soft goals yesterday, and of course, he wasn't necessarily the reason why the Rangers lost to Anaheim. But maybe if he stops a couple of those, at least forces it into overtime, and then it becomes a skill game. And that's a matchup that you'd be able to win against the Ducks. Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad outside of the power play have been a little bit quiet as well. Mika has not been scoring 5-on-5. Kreider might have similar numbers to where he was at this point last year, but I think you and I can agree he's just not making that same impact. Vitaly Kravtsov can't stay on the ice. Alexei Lafreniere and Capo Caco are not consistent enough. Philip Hito has looked great. The fourth line has been made by committee. Ryan Reeves has been traded. Gerard Galant's made some questionable lineup decisions. There's just a lot going on with this team, and I could go on, but they need to figure it out. And I think it starts with the trade deadline, getting a legit top four D man in here and getting somebody to play alongside Artemi Panarin and Vincent Trocheck. A difference maker is what the Rangers need, because if they don't do it, they'll get bounced in the first round, because this team, as currently constructed, is not even remotely close to the team that lost to Tampa in Game 6.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I'm actually really glad you brought up Kopp, Strom, and Vetrano. I mean, the only reason, I mean, let's not get lost on the fact of the Tyler Mott acquisition last year. I thought that was huge for them too. The only reason they were able to get all of those guys is because they had cap space last year. We're kind of constrained at this year, which kind of sucks. But I mean, let's face it, Reeves was basically a cap dump for somebody that you weren't going to play anymore. So I mean, at least they got a fifth round pick for him. I mean, that's probably what they should have traded for him, but different conversation. I digress. But yeah, like you said, it's just like Kravtsov. Dude, Kravtsov has the worst fucking luck in the world. I swear to God. The guy looked good. Like, the guy looked legitimately good for however old he was at the time, like a 19, 20-year-old player at the end of the season before Buchnevich got traded. He looked good. He legitimately looked like the third best wing on the team at the tail end of that season. They trade Buchnevich, and then Kravtsov gets sent down, and that is the moment that that messed with him. Like, that legitimately messed with him. Because the all right, I won't go too far on this tangent, but I mean, as soon as Letteri made the team over Anderson that one year, I literally could not give a flying fuck about watching preseason hockey, because that just proved to me, like, it really, preseason hockey does not matter in the slightest. There are literally 2 to 3 roster spots maybe up for grabs. It's not the NFL where most of the roster, excuse me, not most of the roster, but there's a legitimate handful of roster spots to be had in training camp and in preseason. That's not the case with the NHL. There's literally, depending on the team, if you're a cup worthy team, there's maybe one spot to be had. But I just think that messed with him. Jimmy Vesey is playing on the top line with Barclay Goodrow playing on the second line. Shoot me.
Shades, I have no issue, to be honest with you, with Jimmy VC on the first line. Goudreau on the second line, we can have a conversation about that. But VC on the first line, I just look, last time Jimmy VC was a Ranger, the one player that, he played with consistently was Chris Kreider. Because the Rangers were going through those same issues, right? Failing to have a top line player at the time. So VC has a little bit of chemistry with Kreider, and who else are you going to put in that spot? To be honest with you, you're going to put Sammy Blais, who has bricks in his skates, on the first line. Please don't do that. You're going to put Kravtsov on the first line. That's not going to work either. So I just think by process of elimination, I think VC's the best choice. And Barclay Goudreau, I mean, he's not a winger. He scored last night. Playing alongside Trocheck and Panarin. But again, this could not spell out any more obvious that there needs to be a new right wing on that second line, and his name is Patrick Kane, and I've been saying it for months, and you need him. You just do if you want to make any sort of an impact in the postseason. But I'll continue to sing that song, throughout the entirety of the season. But you can't tell me by looking at VC and Goudreau on the top 2 lines that they don't need a top 6 forward, Shades. I mean, come
No,
on.
they do need a top 6 forward.
Kane or not, they need somebody. They just need somebody. I'd take Vetrano at this point.
Honestly, I would like him back. I mean, he looked good for us last year.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna bring up something that is gonna be a little bit alarming, and I don't know if you know this, but I I did this in my head the other day, and I should not have thought about this to begin with, because I was literally pissed off afterwards. So I look at, from the moment Gallant took over as coach to now, compared to Quinn's last year.
Okay.
And this is what I came up with. Kreider in general just looked better from a shift to shift basis, even though he wasn't scoring as much. Mika was on that insane goal scoring streak. That was the hottest he's ever been as a player. He hasn't come close to replicating that since the COVID shutdown. AKA Gallant taking over as coach, that all kind of blends in together. We haven't been able to find a first line right wing since we traded Buchnevich. Panarin looked phenomenal that first season under Quinn. In my opinion, he hasn't looked the same since. Well, second line center, I mean, Trocheck's 21 games in, he gets half of a pass. 2-6, we also haven't been able to figure out second line right wing, which again, we need to make a freaking move, for the love of God. Third line has improved. That is the one area of the team where I will legitimately give them credit. How can you not, when you have developing Lafreniere, Hedel, and Kakko? Fourth line has just been makeshift for, I feel like, the last 10 years. Would you agree with that in particular, that small
Yes, I would. I would.
thing? Yeah. Truba, in my opinion, looked his best the first season under Quinn as a Ranger. I think he's looked like pretty terrible this year, to be honest with you. Miller, he's kind of stagnated this year compared to last year. Lindgren and Fox, in my opinion, haven't had the same impact since their rookie season together. I mean, Igor is Igor. I mean, Igor's Igor. He's literally the heart and soul of this team. Backup goalie, this is our worst backup goalie we've had in of probably since before I started watching the Rangers. And
Andre Pavlich was better than Halak.
yes, he was. Andre Pavlich was legitimately he wasn't bad as
He
a
was good
Ranger.
for us.
He was a decent backup.
He had like a 9-10 save percentage, something
You know,
around.
he was not a bad backup. I honestly I thought he should have gotten a little bit more credit than he deserved. But I mean, look who he followed.
He retired, right?
He might
After
have.
the Rangers. But well, real quick,
And
just
one last thing,
yeah.
our 5-on-5 play has not taken a step forward in the slightest. Like I told you, I was pissed off after I thought about this last night, and it's frustrating.
So are you sitting here on Thanksgiving Day saying that if you put this roster under David Quinn's head coaching, that they would be better than they are right now under Galant? This roster under Quinn is better than this roster under Galant.
I have to go with I have to go with no, but at the same time, I like the main point of my thing was Galan has been very underwhelming as a coach, which I hate to say, but that's been the truth of the matter so far.
And I'm glad that you said it, Shades, because you're echoing a lot of what I'm seeing too. Panarin has not looked like the same player. I 1000% agree with you on that. The fourth line is by committee. And I think there's just a lot of bad contracts on this team. I don't really care that he's the captain, to be honest. Jacob Trouba, for the way he's been playing $8 million, please, you shouldn't be making 4.5. Like seriously, for what he brings to the team. I mean, outside of those few hits and those game-changing plays in the playoffs, he has not really provided anything of substance as
And
a captain.
honestly, yeah, I agree with you. And Miller has been honestly so much better defensively than him,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
he's getting dragged down.
He is getting dragged down, and yeah, Mika does not even look close to the same player. I mean, he's a power play specialist at this point, right? Isn't he? I
That's
mean,
how it feels.
and that's another thing, right? That I just want to get off my chest. I mean, can we try a different play that's not the slap shot from Mika just in the left circle on the power play? Because I think every single team is setting up for that and they know that it's coming. Maybe Fox can shoot the puck and look for a deflection from the best tipper in front of the net in the league and Chris Kreider. Maybe you can get Artemi Panarin involved a little bit more on the power play. I mean, it's just so predictable. And maybe, just maybe, if they had tried something a little different last night, they would have been tied in that game, converted on a couple other early power play chances. But I agree with you. I think Galant's been really underwhelming, and there's a reason why he's gotten ousted from the last two places that he's coached. I
Thank
mean,
you.
Florida left him in a taxi cab, right? And Vegas was just like, yeah, we're just going to hire Pete DeBoer, even though we're a Stanley Cup contender. So they got rid of him. And you got to ask yourself, why was that the case? And so it raises a couple question marks, and it makes me think, at least, are we going the Alain Vigneault route? Right, Alain Vigneault in his first couple of years, he got the Rangers to the Cup final in 2014, got into the Eastern Conference final the next year, and then suddenly we were into a rebuild. So it's just we cannot find the right head coach, and I think recycling through everybody else's trash maybe is not the right way to go. I mean, look at the Boston Bruins. I mean, they hired Jim Montgomery, who of course was in a unique situation coming off of his alcohol addiction, and getting himself back on the road to recovery. But he was a young coach. He was somebody who coached the University of Denver, had 1 year, 2 years of NHL head coaching experience with the Stars, and he has come in and taken that roster and made it into the best in the league. So maybe don't go the old gentlemen's club, like is the way with the NHL, especially with head coaches in that carousel. And I'll be waiting on the day that Gallant heads out, because I think the team, once that day happens, will be much better off for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with what you said about there being some bad contracts. I think it goes more towards it the makeup of the roster. Like this team literally needs a Joe Sakic Matt Duchene type of trade for this roster to wake up.
They do.
Would you agree with that?
No, I would agree with that for sure. And let's just run through it. I mean, what would you change, right? Are
Well,
you
you know my thoughts on Chris Kreider, so
all the fans at home? Give them
okay.
your
Yeah, I'll tell him. I'm sick and tired of him doing absolutely nothing 95% of every game, and if he's not tipping anything in, he's rarely scoring.
okay. That's a fair point. So you're not in favor of the contract, I guess you would say, the 6.5 million that he's making.
Okay, I understand why they kept him because he was one of the longest tenured players on the team. But I mean, for a first line player and a supposed captain of the team, you gotta do more shift to shift. You have to show more heart and put more effort in shift to shift. I mean,
That's fair.
like yeah, I'm kind of getting sick of him at this point because like literally, if he's not scoring on the power play or if he's not deflecting things in front or to the side of the net, he's rarely using his speed to make plays. Now, don't get me wrong. I've actually think he's been doing more of that this year compared to last year. And that's not saying much because I don't think he's doing it much at all this year either. But I mean, like something's got to change. Like part of me thinks he's dragging Mika down.
He could be. And I hope Mika doesn't come to that realization. I mean, they're the two best friends that anybody could have, right? Mika and Kreider. But yeah, I mean, hey, how can you complain though when he puts up 51 goals? You know,
It's
that
the only thing that kept him on the team, in my opinion.
yeah, if his
Because I think if he would have had like another 25 goal season, they would have been like, yeesh, like, why are we paying this guy?
right, and they're not entirely sure what to do. I think that there needs to be legitimate changes, shades. I agree with you. Just and again, those small little adjustments. I feel like they really, ran into lightning in a bottle when they found lightning in a bottle when they traded for Cop and Vetrano last year at the deadline. Those were the two exact players that they needed. They didn't overpay. They didn't go to the bottom of the barrel. They got the two players that they absolutely needed, Tyler Mott too. So I think they just need to replicate that at this year's deadline. And hey, I might be crazy for saying this. I have faith in Chris Drury. I just do. His last few trades have been pretty good. Fifth round pick for Reeves. Okay, I'll take that, to be honest. And you get his cap off, get a first round pick for Niels Lundqvist. I'm okay with that too. So, I have faith that he'll make the right moves come the deadline.
Yeah, I'm praying to God that he made the right decision to trade Niels because with the way Truba's looked this season, it's unsettling to say the least.
I agree.
Now, granted, they're two different types of players, but I mean, still. But yeah, it's just like they need to make a move. And my only concern about like trading for Patrick Kane is that's one hole filled. There's multiple holes on this roster. And if they do trade for Patrick Kane, unless they're sending like Barclay Goodrow back the other way, that's the only move they're going to be able to make. And they most likely won't be able to address the defense if they make that move, which is something that you and I both agree with that they need to address as well.
I would even go as far to say that maybe Drury should try to fix them both in one trade. How about a Chikrin and Barrett Hayton package? I'll take them. You
What
know,
would we have to give up for that, though? That's the only question.
Hayton's reaching bust territory. They're really getting to that point where they're just like, all right, we drafted this guy number 4 overall. I believe he was drafted in 2017. I could be wrong on that. But Hayden's a real tough physical player who had a good year in the AHL. Just hasn't been able to put it together on the NHL level. I just think getting a young guy in there, someone who can complement your bottom 6 while also getting the best defenseman on the market. If you're gonna pay a lot for Chikrin, get somebody else too. Get yourself a Hayton, get yourself a Lawson Krause, get yourself somebody. That's kind of where I'm at.
It was 2018, number
2018,
number 5.
number 5 in 2018.
Yeah. Okay. I'm
No,
I'm not gonna hold anything against Hayton in general because I just think that the Coyotes under John Chayka were one of the worst drafting teams in the league.
he had 24 points in 60 games last year with the Coyotes. and that's given all the chances in the world. 10 points in 26 AHL games in 2020. You know,
No bueno. No bueno.
maybe a Lawson Krause, just somebody, you
Yeah,
know.
no.
You just need an injection of life. But my point is try to get your defenseman, try to get your forward in the same trade. Maybe a Yoki Haru and Patrick Kane combination, something like that. Like there's options. So we'll see.
Yeah, but you and I definitely in agreement that this team does need to make a major change because what they have now just simply is not working. And it's also unfortunately proving that last season was a fluke.
I wouldn't say last year was a fluke. I would.
I
This
here's
is like
why I
the
say that
team that
because like
without Powell Strom. That's just it.
yeah, here's also why I say that. It's because like this season specifically is also showing that the foundation of the team is flawed.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. The captain is flawed. Their main contracts are flawed. Kreider's contract is flawed. Truba's contract is flawed. You know,
Panarin's
I,
contract at the moment looks flawed.
it is. I wouldn't go as far to say Mika's is flawed as of yet, but 8.5 million for not providing any 5-on-5 production. I don't want to be the one to say it. Vincent Trocheck, you kind of expect him, to kind of expect somebody when they're on a line with Artemi Panarin to kind of find that instant chemistry. Has not really happened. We talk about the prospects over and over. You have two contracts on the fourth line that I think at this point, maybe the Rangers would like to get rid of, and Sammy Blay and Ryan Carpenter, especially when you look at, kind of how they're going to have to maneuver around the cap, especially come the trade deadline. So, and also, I think it can't get lost on the fact that, as much shit as he got during his tenure as a Ranger, Alexander Georgiev was a really good backup goaltender. And he was a big reason why we won some games that we shouldn't have last year. And I think, having such a significant downgrade from Georgiev to Halak, that makes a big difference too. So it's just all those things that we've talked about this entire episode, Shades, coming together as to why this team is mired in being consistently inconsistent.
Yeah, like I think a major reason why they were able to sustain success last year is because all of those problems like showed themselves one by one, and it felt like they were all one at a time. This season, it literally, like you said, everything at once.
Right. Everything is coming down at once for sure. Injuries too. We haven't been hammered too much by the injury bug. And also, my last point on the Rangers, I just want to say, I'm glad somebody finally said it, and I'm glad it was you, Shades. Fox and Lindgren, they just
What
don't look
happened?
they just don't look the same. I just, Fox is Fox. Fox has the best IQ of any player in the or any defenseman in the NHL, in my opinion. He may not have the skating ability of a Cale Makar to be able to deke and score fancy goals like Cale Makar can, but he is just such a smart hockey player. But that pairing, I just something's just not working for me. I mean, what are you seeing out of them? I mean, it's just they just don't look like a true number one pairing that
Yeah,
a Stanley Cup contender needs. They just
yeah,
don't.
no, they don't look the same.
Yeah.
Like their rookie seasons together, I mean, they look great, and it
Yeah.
just hasn't been the same since. And again, like we go back to the coaching change. Could that have something to do with it?
I'd be very interested to see how the locker room, is feeling about Galant, you know, and now that there's no Reeves anymore, and just a little bit of that locker room camaraderie just comes down a little bit, and team morale maybe is a little bit low, handing Anaheim their first regulation win, when does that frustration begins to boil a little bit, and maybe I don't want to suggest coaching change, but you know, I predicted year three of this 4-year contract is when Galant would be ousted. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's earlier. I mean, I wouldn't say Stanley Cup or bust for the Rangers this year, but you want to see improvement. And the fact of the matter is, when you bowed out was in the Eastern Conference Final, and if you're going to improve, there's only one more place to go. And if Galant can't take you there, then Drury needs to realize that.
Yeah, the only like all right, now for the last thing. I mean, like everybody's making a big thing about Trotz, but like we all know as soon as you hire Trotz, offense is probably gonna go down,
You
which
think,
is exactly what this team does not need.
yeah, you think offense is dried up now? I mean, come on.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's our discussion on the Rangers and hockey for this episode.